the violin is the nearest instrument to the human voice. It really does sing. And in some respects, it has a wider range than the soprano. It's sort of soprano and contralto. It also has a longer breath, if you wish. It also is an instrument that is held in the hands, that is part of the body. It doesn't depend on a third stick dug into the ground, like, although I in no way wish to minimize the quality of a cello, but the violin is something that you carry with yourself, and you vibrate with it. Your feet are the connection between the violin and the earth. It doesn't have any other means of drawing upon the earth. Then its shape is a very lovely thing. Its shape is a very feminine one. There is something very special about the relationship of a man to the violin. It's something that requires not only a particular kind of playing and provides a response, but it's something that cannot be brutalized. It cannot be, as it were, violated. It cannot be treated except with how should I say, persuasion and with tenderness. It is a very, very special instrument.
I mean, all it is wood and glue, and that's two items that aren't really conducive to when the tropics that we have here in Louisiana, where it's rain and it comes apart. But I think the fact that it does, it's like it's just like the bridge on the fiddle. You know, when people first look at the bridge, they say, oh, it must be part of it. But you take all the strings and it all comes out because it's a floating bridge. It's suspended. So it's like it's attached, but it's not attached. And I think that's the best way to look at it, because sometimes you can hate this instrument and love it at the same time. It talks to you, it responds to you, it fights back. But I mean, when you play it, you know, you're basically making love to the instrument.
Dad had learned to play a fiddle because, sort of in secret, because the old people and the preachers didn't like it. But he made him his first fiddle after he heard the fiddle played in the schoolroom. He wanted to make one, and he got a little older, and he went out and he got the gourd. You know what a gourd is? It's a hard, round thing that, like a pumpkin or a cushaw or a squash, but it gets very hard, and through the winter. So he got a gourd and he cut off the top and has a long neck on it. So he put pegs on the end of that, and he got some hairs out of the horse's tail, made a bow, and got some strings from somewhere, catgut, or Dad said they used to pull strings through that little hole in the anvil, make big sort of clumsy strings, but still they could get a sound out of them.
As an 8-year-old, I was so enthused about wanting to get a fiddle, but my folks couldn't afford one. And so I attempted, and I still have it at home, but I attempted to make one. I was so determined, and I made one out of cardboard, and I colored it brown and so forth, and I got to the neck, and I was going to work on the scroll, or the headstock, as I thought it was then, but I thought, now if I'm going to put strings on this will fold up. This is no good, you know. And I was frustrated for 3 years until my folks bought me my first fiddle.
monter nos violons avec notre boîte de cigares. On n'avait pas beaucoup d'outils pour faire ça, regardait bien, mais on n'avait pas d'argent pour acheter des cordes pour mettre dessus. On a décidé, on aurait pris du fil à coudre. Ça sonnait pas fort, mais ça sonnait. Aïe, balai pour trouver plat de mise sur la table. Plat de mise sur la table à ma maison.
My father says the first time he ever heard the fiddle played, he's Bayless Ritchie, and he was one of a big family. He was a little slip of a boy, about, I guess, 8 or 9 years old, and he was in the schoolhouse one day, and they had the benches made out of logs. They hewed them on top, and then the parts underneath the desk was just round, and they had that kind of benches and things to sit on, and then the tables in front were made out of logs too, all down through the schoolroom. And the teacher was Maggard Ritchie, and he had a friend one day that came to the schoolhouse, and the stranger had a fiddle. He was from Virginia, and Dad said while they were talking, all the little children were watching him to see what that thing was. They hadn't seen a fiddle before, and finally Dad said he propped it up in the crook of his arm, and he started to play Shady Grove. And he played, and every child in the house started patting their feet, and the teacher tried to make them be quiet for a while, but then the teacher started patting his feet. And after a while, my dad said, I couldn't stand it no longer. I just leapt up on top of that bench and started clogging around. Pretty soon, all the children were up on top of those log benches, and they were dancing all over the schoolroom. That's what the fiddle could do. It just makes them do things they never would do. None of those children would ever have done that if they hadn't heard the fiddle. They just got swept away.
Distinct widely that's a guy post on the Ontario. But now, see him kiss door nega big what. Well, nebam koi. Padaudis, huskitik. So you have Nukje Maranat Quinala, I G Daran. So you have a battery bede mamkui. Said them. Nega big what him kiss door, tell me asli. When you stand in Megala, Labia is capital, there's a book cheese in a rata. Well, I get Nazar with Harkazadu.
Peculiar thing about this violin is that it's got that, whatever it is you call it, you know, and it was pointed out to me by Jerry Holland. I never knew it was there. A pitch pipe. And I'll blow into it to show you what I mean. And that is your standard pitch for the A note, I guess.
The first time I put it under my neck, you know, or like probably around here, it just seemed like it was a mile long, you know? And I said, and then, you know, and how could you really get sound out of this thing? And then, you know, you make these awful sounds at first. But the fact that this fiddle, I mean, it's got, I mean, you know, they said the sound post is the soul of the fiddle. It's got so much sound to be made in just a small area. And I think that's what really, you know, I couldn't believe that he could do that. You can get so much sound, a small area. When you look at it or hear it, but then when you put it on your neck, it probably looks like a runway or something.
This fiddle is from Shetland. It was made by Alec Leask, a great friend of mine, the late Alec Leask. He's now dead, but he made fiddles for Tom Anderson and Willie Hunter Jr. And he worked in the hospital. He made orthopedic boots and crutches and things like that. So when he found wood, he stored it there for years because the temperature was constant. And this fiddle actually got 4-piece top, which you can hardly see. Actually, he offered me number 13, but I couldn't deal with 13, so I took number 14. It wasn't such a good fiddle, but at least when I'm on an airplane, I feel I might survive the trip.
The bow, this bow seems like it's a mile long, and actually you only play about this far of it, you know, so it's a mystery, the whole thing, how the thing's supposed to work out. It's like, it's something that you can do with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Like, you can do a lot of things with your eyes closed, but I think if you can play a fiddle with your eyes closed, you're going to be a better fiddle player.
This is a violin that my father gave to me recently. He's owned it for probably 50, 60 years. It's an Italian-made violin. It was made by one of the Ruggieri brothers, who apparently taught Stradivarius how to make violins, or was one of his teachers. It was made in 1671, and there's some real unusual purfling on the back. All of these swirls, which most violins don't have that. They'll maybe have one simple set of purfling around the side, but all these swirls. And then in the middle of this was written some words in Latin that when they're translated, the words mean dead in the wood, now alive I sing. And it's a beautiful, sweet-sounding violin that has managed to survive for 300 years and hopefully many more. I had it when I was in college, briefly, which was, my college career was very brief, and after one semester of college, I quit playing classical music and ran away to New York City. And I took this fiddle with me. Once my parents located me, they came to New York City and got the violin back. They left me there, but they took the violin back. And that was 20 years ago. My father is in ailing health a little bit right now and isn't playing as much, and about a few weeks ago, he gave me back the fiddle. So it's a beautiful old violin. Almost plays itself. You know, you play violins that are, you have to work at them to draw a tone. You have to work at it to draw out the beauty that's inside. And this one just, it's like getting in a Mercedes after driving a Volkswagen.
Let's see, Yehudi Menuhin is right there. Vassar Clements. there's Stefan Grappelli, a few more jazz greats, Joe Venuti and Jean-Luc Ponty, and the great Indian violinist El Shankar, and some country music legends, Roy Acuff, Johnny Gimbel, and Merle Haggard, and another great jazz violinist, Sven Asmussen. It's painted with basic white enamel. It's almost, well, it's a fairly terrible job of paint. I mean, it's almost like somebody dipped it in the paint bucket. And so I thought about stripping it and having it refinished, but then some people said, you know, it sounds so good now. That might change the sound of it, you know. Why, you know, mess up a good thing? So I said, well, I had to do something with it because it looked so terrible. So I started to have all these famous fiddlers and violinists sign it over the years.
This fiddle here is very interesting. It doesn't look very beautiful, but it's really something. It's what I call my special Cremona. It's made by the father of Hauk and Knut Buen, you know, the master fiddlers here in Norway. And his Anders was his name. He was very special. He was a sort of a philosopher and a mystic, and an inventor too. He invented a lot of things. He was a brilliant man. And he improved, you know, a lot of these fiddles with tempering them down, the thickness in certain ways. And if you look here, something really strange. You see, the back part of the fiddle here is built up, so it curves also this way. It gives it a little more cross stabilization. This fiddle here, you know, it's very, very special. And you know why? Anders, he wanted to prove that you don't have to use maple in the bottom of the fiddle. He has spruce in the lid and spruce in the bottom. But to get the right quality out of it, instead of, let's say, usually having 4 millimeters thick bottom in the middle here with maple, this one's 9 millimeters in the middle. But it sounds. That was some of his special secrets. And he didn't care much about how the fiddles looked, as long as they sounded beautiful, that was okay. And this fiddle here is, I really appreciate it because it's so ugly, but it sounds so beautiful.
About 2 or 3 years ago, I made up a piece, I call it the Fidula Caprice in A, number 1. And it's a combination of a solo violin piece with a lot of fiddling aspects given it. And it's a kind of interesting contrast in a couple of different styles put into one solo fiddle piece. So I'd like to play that for you, but I also have my other fiddle that I've been playing for the last 10 years.
it is magic. First, the instrument himself is magic, not only the sonority you get out of it. The position is hard. For instance, when you put your violin like that, you must be equilibrated because it's not easy to see. It take months, years before, and there is a fatigue as well, because the people think, oh, it's an instrument, it's easy. Not at all. You just ask the people to stay 10 minutes like that, and then find out that's a problem, you know. That means you must practice, you must play long time, until you get a result. But you can't do that if you don't understand. If you are not born to play music, you will, even if you study, you will never, to my opinion, you will never be able to play.
It's a funny thing, you know, you're born with something. Everybody is born with something. Some finds it and some more cannot find it. But thank God I found it. I had an uncle, but I remember 12 years old, he got some old piece of the violin and he made me a violin. And he put some catgut string on it. And he brought it to me. And you know what? He could play too. There was one called The Devil Among the Tailors, and the other one called, I don't know. I was Irish. Now, I'm just going to play a few notes, but he just two fingers, that's all he could do. This one here first, Irish. My little heart started going like this there. I said, pass it in French. We can't play that. And here I played it too. Two fingers, just like he done. I love women. I used to love women. But that little violin, the sound of the violin. Oh boy. It's a long story. I guess you understand about it.
I had these tunes from different people that I had in my mind, like songs of Ernest Tubbs or something, you know. And I would just hum a note at a time and try to find it. It was just hard. It was really a hard way to do it. And even before that, I tried to make the bow go across the strings where they wouldn't scratch. That took forever. I didn't know rosin. I didn't even know what that was. I've even used thread in a bow because I didn't know what you're supposed to have in it. I was getting nowhere on it. You know, I mean, it's just like, it was like something that I couldn't do, and I hated to be outdone about anything. I didn't want to. I wanted to play it so bad. You know, I would get so discouraged at times. I've even cried at times because I couldn't learn anything.